Morning, folks. Well, afternoon, really. Hi, Robin again. It's Monday, and it's a holiday. As I don't have to go to work today, I thought I would, take a little bit of a break to, well, I'm gonna tell you about the LARPs around Toronto, at least the few that I know of, because, there are a lot. Toronto, it's got different kinds of LARPs, well, how do I put this? We have fantasy LARPs, we've got horror, we've got your Doompunk, zombie apocalypse sort of games, and we have a wide variety. Each has their own community, and there is some overlapping between games, but not nearly as much as you'd think. A lot of these games also tend to sport somewhere between 50 to 100 people on average, and these are all for very large games, so admittedly, we're not going to be able to know every single game that's in the area, but at least these are some of the main ones. First main one I'm going to tell you about, it's called Underworld. This is one of the first games I played at as soon as I moved to Toronto. They do a very horror fantasy where the amount of players who have their characters die is a lot higher. There is a level of difficulty, so it's a very challenging game. It's a very well-built, well-constructed game. The mechanics all flow very nicely. And I'll be honest, maybe wasn't my best choice for first-time LARPing, but it still was a lot of fun. I'm not going to say otherwise, because I did really enjoy, my time while I was there. I keep meaning to go back to it, but haven't really had much of an opportunity lately. Next on my list to tell you about is one of the ones I have been going to more recently. It's called Fantasy Alive. Very standard sort of fantasy, from what I can tell. I've done a lot of NPCing there, which NPCing is the playing of the monsters and the villains and the like, things that players are allowed to kill and not have to worry about upsetting anyone because they killed someone's character. These are your monsters that run around, wolves in the forest, trolls on the hills, etc., etc. Big bad monsters that come to town that players can kill and have a sense of joining together to fight, because once in a while the monsters that come in will be fairly large and no one will be able to fight them on their own. Next on my list for ones to tell you about is Elegy. It's your Doompunk game, post-apocalyptic. It's a very simple game. It's designed for new players just to be able to quickly throw a character together like that and just jump in. The mechanics are all kept as simple as possible. There's not a lot of math that has to be done to keep up with things. And, because it is post-apocalyptic, you can wear pretty much anything you want. It's tattered, burnt clothes that you find just about anywhere. And so there is that advantage of being able to, go to Value Village, find a bunch of crap clothes that are on for really cheap, and just throw those together for a costume, and it's going to completely fit. No one's going to have any problems with that at all. Now, next one is Epoch, another fantasy one. This one's very player-driven. There's a lot of opportunity for players just to come up with things on the fly. So, yes, there are a lot of monsters, and the artistic directors do what they can in order to make sure things stay interesting, but there's a lot of skills that are very much up to the player's interpretation. So often you'll get people doing some sort of spell to command you to dance, and your definition of dancing might be very different from what the caster's definition is, but you do your definition as opposed to what they want. So there is a lot of creative freedom that is given to the players in terms of what they can and cannot do. A bit math-heavy. The numbers can get pretty large with this game, but overall it is fun. You'll find that is a consistent thing with most LARPs, that at least all the ones I've been to around Toronto, is that they are a lot of fun, and don't want to say anything bad about them, but they all have very different feelings, and they kind of cater to slightly different areas of the community. Last one I'm going to tell you about is one called Shadow Realms. This is one that it and Epoch, I've started them both recently, so I'm still fairly new to these groups. Shadow Realms is one that I have been NPCing at, so, you know, I've only been there a couple of times. I really can't say too much about it. I know that the people in charge of it have been trying very hard to make sure it's as interesting as possible for the players, and, honestly, I'd have to go to it more to be able to tell you more about it. It is a large group, but it's also one that I haven't spent as much time with as some of the other groups that I've been around. You know, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm wasting your time here by pausing and not really being sure what to talk about. I will say that, you know, there are many more LARPs around Toronto. I'm not sure what the sizes around them are. These are just the main ones that I know about. Part of the reason I felt the need to tell you about all these different groups and these different genres that are covered in LARPing is one of the things we don't have around Toronto is one that's actually really sci-fi based. You know, stuff like Star Wars, Star Trek, really high future fantasy, where technology can just go insane and do just about anything instead of having stuff like magic or mutations in a lot of the games we do have around here. Which I bring up because that's one of my current projects, is myself along with a couple of others were looking into designing actually a future fantasy LARP where it's actually based on things like Star Wars, where there's a lot of science and a lot of opportunities for things to develop as, you know, whatever they can create in game. And unlike a lot of post-apocalyptic games where resources are limited, because this is something based in, you know, future, not post-apocalyptic, then resources become less of an issue, and there becomes a lot more opportunity for our players to experiment in-game and see what they can come up with. Obviously, even if we do base it off something like Star Wars, there are those legal issues where we do have to change a number of things, because last time, to my knowledge, that someone attempted an actual Star Wars LARP, it was shut down by George Lucas and by LucasArts. This was admittedly before Disney bought out the LucasArts franchise, but whether or not they would be more inclined to allow an actual Star Wars LARP to exist, honestly, I couldn't say one way or the other. I mean, the Disney of today, it's very big with a lot of its community, so they might end up allowing it, but there's also the strong chance that if they did, that they would try to exert a lot of control over the materials and the goings-on of a game like this, which is kind of contradictory to the sort of sensation that you'd want with a future fantasy LARP, which is that level of creative experimentation that can be done. Personally, I think using a material like Star Wars is very beneficial to the game, because something like Star Wars, Star Trek, these are some of the largest nerd cultures, largest fandoms that we have around the world, really. And so the material is well known to the extent that players have a sensation of what it might be like and what they might want to try being, and can jump in without much hesitation. The other issue I could see with that being with Electronic Arts, since they purchased the right to make any and all Star Wars-based games, and LARPing is essentially a live interactive game, which is done by people and not through consoles, so they might also raise up legal issues, and you can see where that problem would lie. But anyways, that is my episode on LARPs around Toronto. I know there are others. I don't really know them much at all, so I cannot cover them. I may get people here who know more about these games to explain them to you, but for now, that is the best that I can do. Thank you for putting up with me once again. I'm probably gonna have to come with a title for this show at some point. For now, yeah, again, thank you for watching, and comment if you have things you'd like to hear about. Subscribe, please. I really appreciate it. I'm up to 4 at this point. It's surprising and awesome, but yeah. Welcome to LARPing. I hope to see you around Toronto.